Alright, welcome back to another Ladder Legends analysis. This time we are looking at Zigur as the Ladder Legend student against Chovka in a ZVT. So Zigur says it's ZVT versus 4800 Terran on ladder. We played 2-1. I didn't scout it. Second barracks until some moment limits were equal. At the same moment, Terran became forward. What mistake did I make? So I think what he's asking here is that he didn't scout 2-1, and it looked like he was doing okay, and then at some point the Terran came out fine. So let's kind of just take a look at the build-up phase here and see what we can see. Okay, so we're going for a 16 pool. Pretty good. 16 pool, 16 hatch. I would actually just do a, let's see what we got here. Yeah, 16 pool is fine, but then after the 16 pool, I would actually go up to 17 and then take the hatchery. Just a little bit more economic. Make sure that we keep, 16 out of 16 on minerals for as long as possible, or for as little time as possible when not there. Not a huge deal. Although now we're mining with one less than 16 out of 16 this entire time. And then we're making 3 Zerglings here. Okay, this is fine. It's a bit more aggressive though, so this is certainly playable. But with these Zerglings, obviously we'll have to be aggressive and try to cancel the hatchery or the command center or do a lot of damage there. It's not necessary. Just I want to throw that out there. If you go 16 pool, you really don't need to make any Zerglings at all if you don't want to. The opening is pretty much as economic as a hatch first, because you get the extra queen out for the extra round of injects. The only thing you lose is the link speed then would be a little bit later if you did the build that I suggested, which is a 16 pool, 17 hatchery, queen, then gas, and then rally into gas. So your gas is a little bit later, and your creep at your natural is a little bit later, which isn't really a big deal in ZVT. You can just drop a creep tumor and get the creep rolling. So it's okay if you want to do this, but I just want to point out that if you want to go pool first, you don't have to do this. Not really a big issue. If you see something like a proxy, you can always then drop a roach horn and you're pretty happy really quickly. So this does put us, what this does is this does commit us to getting something done with these lings, right? So they need to go across map. They can't just stay here. This is good. And they need to get some damage done. So we go around the Reaper. The Reaper comes home immediately when he sees that it is a pool first. And we get a pull. We kill 1 SCV. So like ultimately, I don't know if like killing 1 SCV here and getting this pull and denying this glance at lately is necessarily worth the investment in. So how could we have probably what in this case we want to like immediately go for the Marines and just tag one Zergling on this SCV, but the rest should immediately be going for these links because like we have very few seconds before he starts to realize what's going on and he starts to react. So we want to make sure that we can get to these. We want to make sure that we can get to these Marines before these SCVs get to him. So if we could kill these 2 Marines and 1 SCV, then probably that's like a worthwhile endeavor. However, this year probably not so worth. So we're starting to fall behind. We also have no lings on the way. Okay. This is where this overlord probably wants to. Previously, you wanted to scout in around 4 minutes. At this point, it's more like 4:20 with the 8 worker start. So, like, this overlord should try to be sneaking his way in and getting another look over here. If you do, then you would have ended up seeing that there was, a second barracks by 4:20. Let's see what we would have seen. So we would see that the factory was moving. The factory, we could see that the barracks was still, and really all you need to see is that the barracks is still on the reactor. Excuse me. Well, as soon as you see that the barracks is still in the reactor, then you know that it's like a barracks play, a marine play, not a helium play, and that's kind of all you really need to know, especially when you see that there is a siege tank here, the factory is moving. This kind of like you can pretty well infer that it is a 2-on-1 based off of this. We'll note that the starport is quite late. He's going for a third command center before he goes for a starport. So like and he's got a tank. So he's very, very defensive. So we don't really need to worry too much. I'll also note that this overlord, like that we committed in a second overlord, but this first overlord could have committed in and seen some information and maybe would have died, but note it's going to die anyway. So it definitely should get back to this pillar if it's not going to be the one that sacks in. And if it is going to be the one that sacks in, then you don't need this guy to sack in. Okay, so here we see that it is I didn't scout it, second barracks. We did scout the second barracks. So this is an attention problem. So we actually, it's a bit later than I would have recommended the scout gets off. But we look at the overlord here, and we look away and we never look back. Yeah, so here, everything we're doing is completely fine, but okay, here we look at it and we just maybe don't identify this as second barracks. So this is just one of those things that like you need to like have in your mind. What are you looking for? You're looking for already when we see that this factory is not on a reactor, not on this reactor specifically, that should already cue us into we think we're like dealing with Marines. And then when we see that, we're looking for a starport, don't see it anywhere. And we see that there is, 2 more buildings. What are the buildings? They're both barracks. There's a tech lab on one, which is researching. What can you research? Combat stations or concussive shells. Which one is it going to be most likely? It's always most likely going to be STEM. And we see that he has 2 Marines shooting us right now. He's constantly producing out of the 2 barracks. So this all alone, it's just think about these details. Because you have to sort of like see it in a flash when you're in game, which is difficult to do. And so just overthinking about these details whenever you get caught unaware, you always want to ask yourself 2 questions. What did I put my units in positions to scout things? And if the answer is no, then obviously you need to like put your units in a position to scout things. And the second is, did I understand what I was seeing? And in this case, it seems like I still think we could have like seen this a little bit earlier, but we still put our units in position to scout it, but it just didn't register. Well, I guess you could add a third in there, like one in between, like the did I say it? One is like, even though I put my units in position to scout it, did I ever put my screen on it? Did I see it? So in this case, we put the units in position to scout it. We put our screen on it, and it just didn't click. So study this. Think about like, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the add-on on the factory. I'm looking for where the factory is. I'm looking for the add-ons of the other buildings and the add-ons. I'm looking for a third CC. And so here we only see 2 barracks and a factory. And the 2 barracks have add-ons and the factory does not. So it's just honestly, it's just you got to get used to the pressures of the game. And it's got to become so second nature. To start with, this is why like we talk about
your macro needs to be second nature so that you can spend time thinking about what the opponent's doing. But then at a certain point, you want that to also become second nature. So then you can not just look at what your opponent's doing, but now you can say, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know what my opponent's doing. What does this mean for the state of the game? And so that's like the third skill that you need to do is like take the two pieces of information together and and then like feed it back into your system of what should I do. So what would I do if I saw this information? Well, what I would do is I would make sure all of my overlords were not on the map. I'd try to pull them off the map. They probably shouldn't be this far out to begin with, but pull them off of the map, and I would know that okay, I can drone quite a bit. Like I would actually know that I'm a little behind because these zerglings don't need to be made, which is part of the reason why we want to be like scouting in sooner. We'd like to be powering up making more queens, so we're a little bit low on queens here. We've only got 2 queens total. Typically, very standard in ZVT these days is 6 queens. And so we can go over that. I'll go back and go over what that looks like, but ultimately we want 6 queens as kind of like a standard baseline. And we only want these zerglings, let alone these zerglings, this early if he is going for Hellions. Otherwise, we want to power up. We basically like no zerglings. Power up getting some extra drones out, and then make more Zerglings delayed, make like 30 Zerglings delayed, 40 Zerglings delayed to receive his Marine push, along with our 6 Queens. And so basically, in this situation, you come back and you go, oh, okay, well, I don't have enough Queens, and I've got too many Lings already, so you need to be coming up with like, you need to understand that like we've already set up our economy quite roughly, if you will. Everything is sort of putting us behind already. So now we can come up with like a how do we actually defend this? You basically have 2 options. One is to hope that he doesn't attack and just power drones because we're a little bit behind in drones. And the second would be probably in this case what I would suggest, which is we know we're going to have to gamble a bit because the thing is, if you look at his setup, well, we need to see. We don't know that he has a third base. We probably should know he has a third base. So if we know he has a third base, then we can actually be pretty sure he's not going to attack for a little while. So I'm actually going to modify. I was about to tell you that I would overmake units, but as I'm thinking about this now, actually the thing that you need to do here is we need more information, which is we need to know if he's going to attack us. And if he's not going to attack us, then we need to power up our droning. And so the best way to do that is to we've overmade some lings, take like 5 lings, put them on a different hotkey, and start scouting. Scout first third base, peel off a ling there, scout other third base, peel off a ling there. And then like if there's other ways that they can leave, so like you could like for instance, we don't know if he has a starport, so you could put like a link here. So now we have, I said 5 links, so now we have now we have 2 links left. So like 1 link here, 1 link here, 1 link here, and then the other 2 links can come back here and they can check the wall, and they can try not to die, and they can pull back. If they die, then we need to pull off 2 more links because they get shot by this tank. And then we can need to pull off 2 more links, but we would see that he has a command center, see he has a tank, and we can pull 2 more links and pull them back here. And what we've effectively done is we've created a safety net of vision around his base. So now we know if he's going to push out, and until he pushes out, we're going to be droning really hard to try to catch up, and droning and making queens. Droning, overlords, and queens would be like what we want to make here. Once we get a good, and we know he has a third base, so eventually we'd make a 4th base as well. We'd start getting creeps spread out, and then once we kind of feel a little bit more stabilized, you want to make sure that you always have at least 5 Zerglings or so, 5 to make preemptive banelings, and then so like you'd want to make like 5 banelings kind of blindly while you're doing this droning. But first you'd want to make a lair before you make the banelings ideally, so that you can working on getting that bane speed ASAP. And then as soon as you see him move, like attack, let's say he moves out and he attacks here, we don't know if he is taking the third base or if he's attacking us. So what we do is we take one ling and send it out this way send it out towards the attack path. So the division just went dark here. He just attacked it. We don't know what's going on. Take one ling, send it here. And then with all the rest of the lings, you start morphing banelings, and then you make a huge round of lings. And then as this ling travels, it will either also die because his army is pushing, or it will stay alive. And then you know he's not pushing, and then you can use this ling to say, oh, okay, is he just taking a base? Cool, that means I can drone. If he's just taking a base and not being aggressive, I can maintain vision and drone even more. So this is sort of like how we play the early mid game against Terran. But right now, the biggest issue is not even the fact that we scouted and didn't like understand what we saw, but it's that we are not scouting with the lings and getting vision in front of his base with the lings. Bane speed, as soon as Lair's done, Bane speed needs to be done. This needs to be a priority. And then we first see him move out when he is here, but it's just a double medevac drop. So here we should make sure that we're getting creep spread, and we should have now we should have some amount of banelings more, like probably 5 banelings, just so that we can trade effectively with these units. Ideally, bane speed is almost done. And then this is where we start the multi-prong. So he's not doing like a full push, he's just starting to attack with like a group of medevacs. Whenever he attacks with a group of medevacs, we should always assume that about a minute later, he's going to attack in another location with another set of medevacs, right? And so we need to make sure that we take all of our units, we have them hotkeyed to 3 here. We should put them on a different hotkey, a counterattack, or we'll call it a side army hotkey. And then the side army hotkey, we'll mirror them, we'll follow these medevacs around wherever they go. And we'll make sure that, like, do you want to fight them on creep? Let them step onto creep and try to clear it. And then immediately, as soon as they step onto creep, this side army wants to pounce. And then he'll have to pick up, and he'll come back. Maybe he'll come back and try to unload here. You want to follow him and make sure that he isn't able to unload safely anywhere until he goes back home. And then you come back home. You're not really looking to fight. And if he ever gets out fully, then you kind of have to like back off and let him get out fully, go back to creep. But like if he ever has to pick up, then make it very challenging for him to unload. In the meantime, you're going to make another round of units, put that on 3, and you're going to send it to the opposite like place where these medevacs are. So if these medevacs go this way, hold on, I'm not sure why I'm not using my all my tools. If he is coming here with his side army, right? Or let's actually do it like this. If he is coming, oh, it's so large. It should be less large, shouldn't it? I don't know how to make it less large. Let's do it like this. If he is coming here with this side army, or with these double medevac drop, then our side army goes here, and then everything else we make comes here on 3. Our 3 hotkey comes here. Because we're expecting some other side army to come this way, right? And this entire time, we want to be spreading our creep spread. Okay. So here, we should be spreading creep. And then the second he decides to step on, he hasn't actually, the thing is, we only come and fight him if he comes on creep. We have a couple banelings. He has to pick up because we have banelings. Then we chase him. But here, we don't want to chase because he's not threatening anything yet. And we don't have any, like, he's already out and ready to fight. So we don't actually want to fight here necessarily because it could go poorly for us. But we did get him to pick up. So now that we got him to pick up, now we chase. Right? Now we should be chasing him. And so if we chase him, then we would see He would not be able to unload here. He'd have to pick up and come somewhere else. And then maybe we'd see the third medevac, and we'd say, oh, okay, here's the third medevac. So we had army here to deal with this with a double medevac drop show up here. But now we can take like half that army and put it on this army because there's now 3 medevacs here. Right? And then he never gets to unload here if we're like following this around. He might have to unload all the way back at the base, in which case then we come home, we reset, and we reset our army. We still have a little bit of army here, and we have that same army, that same side army here. And we just push and creep. This is the game of ZVT in the mid game. And then, of course, once we finally get out Mutalisks, the Mutalisk will shut this down. But we should be able to, we should feel confident and comfortable shutting this down even without having Mutalisks out. Just by forcing him, having 2 armies, and then having one army follow him around until he goes home. And then having the other army ready to like intercept the next medevacs. Notice this guy never does multi-prong, which is not like there's not a reason for you not to prepare for him to do multi-prong, because you being prepared to receive his multi-prong is what will give you the confidence to have a side army out dealing with this medevacs, because you know that when the side army is doing this medevacs, he's not going to just show up and you have nothing over here. But we want to remain in contact with these medevacs. Everywhere they go, we want to remain in contact with these medevacs until they're forced to go home. And then, of course, if they link up with a giant army, we pull back. We pull all of ours, so we see, okay, he's doing a giant push, so we pull all of our stuff together, and then we receive his push. I don't think I would go Corruptors here, so if we're only going Corruptors, I feel like we're going Corruptors because we are annoyed with Terran drops, and we want to be able to deal with them. We gotta like get used to having 2 army hotkeys and maybe even 3 army hotkeys. This is the skill that needs to be built. And then why we're dealing with this, we should be pushing creep. We should have creep all the way over here, all like this. And then once we do, he has to siege up pretty far back. And here we need to realize we're not really planning on fighting until we have all of our money spent to include gas. So we have way too much gas relative to the amount of minerals we have. And this kind of goes back to the very first moment that I mentioned. You know, we want to be 15 out of 16 on our minerals. Well, here it's kind of the same. Like every base, the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why we are floating so much gas is we are primarily making lings. And so therefore, you know, we don't really need this much gas to primarily make lings. Maybe 5 gas here would be fine. But again, I don't think I would recommend going Corruptors. I think I would recommend going Mutas here and dumping all of your gas into Mutas if you're going to make a Spire. Otherwise, you can go something like a Hydralisk Den is probably a bit more solid. But the biggest thing, too, is even if that's all the case, we should be prioritizing. We need to have 16 out of 16, 16 out of 16, 16 out of 16, but we don't. We have 14 out of 14 everywhere and 11 out of 16 here. So that, plus the fact that we're going Ling heavy, not making mutas, kind of leads to this really huge gas imbalance that we have here. And ultimately, if we had all this gas dumped into mutas and all these into mutas, we would take those mutas and, like, as he pushes out, we would come around and we would threaten the space. And then this would do 2 things. It would split his attention, but 2, it would also, I need to get better at this. So if we had mutas, we'd come around, we'd threaten the base, and it splits his attention, but it also cuts off this army from his like reinforcement line. So any reinforcements that try to scream across the map, the mutas would attack. Right? And that effectively means that this army is as big as it can get, and we're still streaming reinforcements from our hatcheries. So we might even give up this base, and we would choose to not fight here because we know that he's cut off from reinforcements while we are still growing. So we might say we're not going to fight here, and instead we're going to fight here. We're going to take this base in the meantime. We're going to evacuate this base. Let him slowly push this base while he is not growing, while our mutas are here, making sure that his reinforcements can't get through. And then after like a minute or so, whenever he finally gets enough reinforcements that he thinks, okay, maybe I can start to push through the mitas, then everything goes in here and the mitas turn here, or rather, he's going to be pushing up kind of more. He's in this area now. The mutas turn on this, the army turns on to this, and we actually can defeat this army because he has a big chunk of army back here. This is how we would defeat this sort of push. So here we don't even want to fight here. Even now, we can sort of do the same concept. We can take a bunch of lings. We can counter with those lings, cut off the army, do the same concept. Why we continue to grow, give this base up, continue to morph lings and banes over here, take this base over here, threaten this base. We don't want to be pushing. He's pushing us. We don't need to push into him. He's pushing us, right? So that's the big issue there. I think that the mid game, I think trying to push creep would help out a lot here. So learning, getting confident, aligning, getting confident in like the two armies, the main army and the side army, and having the side army follow around the medevacs and making sure they can unload. That would be very helpful. That would help you while you're doing that, having an emphasis on spreading creep. You're really in the business of protecting your creep while you're doing that. That would be very, very helpful to work on. Aligning your build, or rather, okay, making sure that you are, resource balanced for the builds you're doing. So if you're doing something like this, you need far less gas, and you pretty much always need to make sure that you're maxed out on mineral mining. Mineral mining is the good mining that helps you max out. Max out is what makes you feel safe. Making sure that but ultimately, I don't know if I would recommend just a few corruptors. Like, this is a huge investment. If anything, we can go a Hydrid in here, but if we're going to go Spire, we should be going mutas, and making as many mutas as we can. But don't try not to. You need to get a muta flock together. Don't lose the mutas. Very difficult to do. So maybe not my recommendation unless it's your jam. I would recommend a Hydralista in here instead. And then the biggest thing is not understanding, or rather taking this fight, being very impatient, I guess, or fundamentally, we always want to be, whenever the Terran is pushing and it's prior to max out. If we're not maxed, the Terran's probably not maxed, which means his army's still growing, which means we need to take a portion of our army. Somehow, mutas are good, lings are good, and we need to cut him off. We need to delay the fight. Ideally, we can delay the fight and we can still save the base. But if we're pretty low in supply and we don't think we can save the base, we can even sack the base, take a base somewhere else. And then after about a minute or so, when our army has grown larger and his army is just getting ready to push through and join up, then we can take the fight. And I think that was probably the biggest mistake this game. Although with all the other mistakes that we've had, you notice our supply is quite low anyway. But this is still quite winnable, this game. You still have or rather you have winning chances, I would say, if you take the fight properly. So this has been a Ladder Legends replay analysis. Thanks for watching. If you guys would like to see more of this content, definitely click subscribe, join Ladder Legends, and you can get your own, and subscribe to that, and you can get your own replays analyzed. Thanks.